kind of goes back to the old days. Back here in the back used to be all those.
I remember my friend Liz. I don't know. Liz Fulton? You remember her? She was in radio. Yeah, she used to live here.
Oh, did she?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I don't know what happened to her,
I don't either.
but yeah, she got run out. I don't know. She got run out of town or something. I don't know. So we've started already. I mean, this is like reality, Gary.
Yeah,
so like
yes,
I'm like a professional show.
Yeah.
Which is what I did for a long time.
Yeah.
Where you like plan and you have a meeting.
Yeah.
And you kind of get organized and you kind of come up with a whole reason for doing the show and all the rest of it.
Sure.
I've decided to not do any of that.
Good.
I'm not doing any of that.
We can just talk about carp.
I'm just gonna lay it out there. So you're here, Gary, and let me just set the scene and actually officially start the podcast since we just kind of jumped in. I'm David J, and we're sitting here at the Lucky Llama in downtown Carpinteria, and I'm here with a guy who, honestly, when the idea came up to do a podcast about Carpinteria, you were one of the first people that I thought of. I'm sitting here with the one and only Gary Dobbins, and Gary and I go back, I don't know, what, like 20 years or so?
More than that, it's about 30.
Because you were...
Yeah, I've had the paper for 25 years.
You were doing the longest I can remember. I'm older, so the memory starts to fade. But as I recall, we met when you were doing the Carpinteria Chamber of Commerce radio show.
That's
at
correct.
the old KCMS 1250.
Gosh, that is.
And that was 20 whatever years ago it was.
My God.
And you and Rosemary Finucci, God bless her soul, Lynn Graff, and who else was there? I can't remember. It was so long ago.
Well, there was many. What we did.
Well, you rotated people in and out.
We rotated them in and out because we were trying to focus, and you were helping us out.
Right.
On Carpinteria.
Yeah.
That was what the basis was.
Yeah, and so when the idea came up for Amboy, who's not here today, by the way, for those of you who are interested, when the idea came up for Amboy and I to do a podcast about Carpinteria, I thought, well, fuck, Gary's got to be one of the first people on.
Well, I'm honored.
And so for those two people, well, actually, I was going to say for those two people who are listening that don't know who you are. Actually, I'll be lucky if two people actually listen to this, because who knows? We're just a podcast. We're just on the internet, So I don't think anybody's listening. To tell you the truth, this is a show for nobody. But for those two people in Carpinteria that might be listening that don't know who you are, Gary, you've just got a long history here. You're a co-publisher of the Coastal View News, which is our daily newspaper here in town. You were one of the guys that started Avocado Festival here. Well, how many years ago that was?
Roses.
And Rods and Roses, exactly. So
Car show.
You can't know anything about Carpinteria and anything that happens in Carpinteria without tangentially knowing who Gary Dobbins is. So you're exactly why I wanted to have you on the show.
Well, since you brought up the memory and the nostalgia thing, how this all got really implemented for me and community and all this was, we used to have a place here that was a beach town that had a place called Chewy's.
Oh, I might. I know Chewy's well, so does my wife.
Yes, and not only was it a place for locals, but it was a beachy, fun place to go on the weekend. So everybody would get together. You had karaoke. And it just so happened that when I first came here in the 80s, they were going through an ordeal to try to build a new plant down at the sanitary district. They needed to build a new plant. And one of the people that rented from me found out that I had a background in water engineering. So they asked me to run for this board to help build a new plant. Well, I decided to run my campaign from Chewy's because I didn't really know anybody.
The local bar just seems to be a gimme. Of course, it should be the headquarters of your campaign.
Well, not only the headquarters, it was where the locals were.
And for full transparency, my wife Marianne was the manager there. She was the
That's
manager
right.
there for 9
Very
years.
Great manager.
So just so everyone knows,
Yeah.
she was fully involved at that point in time.
Well, not only that, it was
that was before I knew her. To tell you the truth.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is, that evolved because I didn't know how to run a political campaign.
Yeah.
And it was a matter of trying to get the word out to the public. And the greatest meeting place I had was Chewy's because of that. And the funny thing about it, there was 3 incumbents running on that, and I was a newbie. Nobody ever heard of me. Nobody knew who I was. And we made the greatest upset in history. I got 50% of the votes. And it was all based on knowing the people at Chewy's and the people that came into Chewy's. They were so interested in knowing, first of all, why would I want to even take up a challenge to get into politics? And then the fun that we used to have at Chewy's.
Yeah.
I mean, they had karaoke. They'd have live music.
And Marianne was actually the woman who started that, actually. And they had a lot. And I'm sure, now, in the 6 degrees of separation world, Marianne and I we've been together, we've been married for like 4 years, but we've been together for like 17,
Wow, congratulations.
But we're so sure that we must have run across each other before we ever officially met, and we met at the Palms, of course.
Yes. There's some more stories.
Well, there's some more stories out of the Palms. But, Marianne she used to work for Caro's. She was a manager, and we worked it there. She was like a manager there.
Yes.
At the one at the airport, and I hung out at the one in Goleta.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure that there was some times where I was at the one at the airport and she was there. And plus, I used to come to Chewy's before I knew Marianne to sing karaoke on Saturdays.
Well, yeah.
So I know that you and I were probably there at the same time, and I know I was there when Marianne was there. So in the 6 degrees of separation, we were meant to get together at the Palms because we had definitely bumped into each other before that. So Chewy's was the place to be, and of course you knew it. So you headquartered your campaign out of Chewy's, and it was the way to go.
And not only the way to go, it was something that John Palminteri, who's a good friend of yours and mine, alluded to. He could not believe that the choice of putting the campaign and meeting there, every interview he had to do with me for this political race was at Chewy's. And
that's hilarious.
And I think that's also probably, again, how paths with you and Marianne may have crossed because she did so much with the radio stuff. Palminteri back then was on K-Tide. He had his Seinfeld trivia game. And
I remember the guy who did the Seinfeld trivia, Matthew Arnett, who I'm good friends with, who after he left K-Tide, he came over to the competition, KCQR, and they teamed me with Matt on the morning show at KCQR, and we had the best time together. And we did the Seinfeld trivia back then too. And of course, that's when I met John, because I came up to John one day when he was out doing a stand-up for some TV thing. And I said, "Hi, John. I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm David J. And you and I have the proud pleasure of being the only 2 guys in town to have worked with Matt Arnett."
Yeah.
And so that immediately bonded us together, and we've been friends ever since.
Well, and that was a part, even when you were back in radio.
We used to work together too.
Well, back in radio, and when you were doing the producing and stuff. Yeah. There was such a difference in radio back then. I could take my daughters with me to the radio station when John and them were doing trivia, and they would bring 2 young daughters on and just have fun with, what's going on in Carpinteria?
Well, and I got to say, I had not intended for this conversation to kind of go this way, but that's the way conversation is. You kind of struck a chord with me because it reminds me of how distressed I was during the Thomas fire when I tuned into the radio and there was nothing there. I mean, my good friend, and he's a great guy, Lance Roscoe down at KCLU, he was on. They had the BBC World Service live from London the night that it was starting to first burn into Carpinteria.
Right.
They had the BBC World Service live from London on. And he'd come on every like 30 minutes or 45 minutes to do a short, like 2 or 3 or 5 minute cut in. And I can imagine poor Lance. He's probably at the station alone. Yes. There's nobody else there. And he's on the phone with the fire department and the police department and the Cal Fire and everybody else trying to put something together. And then he goes on and quick records a quick thing. But meanwhile, the listener is tuning on the radio station and they're hearing probably what? The BBC World Service live from London. All the other stations in Santa Barbara, there's nothing. Just music. There was nobody home, nobody there.
Nobody there.
And, I would listen to during the fire and then the ensuing mud flow and when we were cut off from the rest of reality, listening to the radio and hearing, and God, they're friends of mine, God love them, Bill and Lynn from K-Tide. I have to say, God, guys, it was not good. Well, it was like, we're in the studio, we don't know what's going on. If you're out there and you know, why don't you call us and tell us, and then by virtue of telling us, you can tell everybody else. Mm-hmm. And so they did that, and over on K-Lite, Gary and Catherine, bless her soul, she's a real radio person, and she did the best job of stepping up and bring on coverage of news conferences and putting out the news, and she was like the star of that whole Rincon broadcasting group of stations. Exactly. Unfortunately, I mean, and to be honest with you, I did not listen to KTMS and Jim Sirianni very much, so I don't know how he did, but I just think Catherine probably did the best job out of all of them.
Well, I think what we've alluded to here is the changes.
What's so sad is that I have to rely on the morning co-host of the Yahtzee morning show on the easy listening light rock station to bring me the news. There's not like a news crew, and eventually like KEYT gave the stations permission to carry their audio over the radio, which was kind of nice. But it was the TV news on the radio.
That's
and
right.
At my last job, and I hear this, I'm not trying to make the show about me, and here I am, but my last radio job was working for the News Press radio station, K1290. AM 1290, the News Press radio station. And my second day on the air, I hadn't been in news radio since back when you and I were together there at like KTMS, KEYT in the old days.
That's right.
And on my second day back to news radio was the day the Hesacita fire broke out.
Oh, yes.
And so my boss, my new boss, the infamous Wendy McCaw, who, we can go on about her, and her fiance Nipper were out of town. They were like in London or something. And so I thought, okay, I got a week to kind of get myself together before they're going to be back in town listening to the radio station. So I could suck for a little bit, and, I could kind of work things out and get used to the news radio legs again. Nope. Second day, it broke out. I pulled a 21-and-a-half-hour shift. I was on continuously, either in the field or in the studio, continuously for 21 and a half hours. That, I think, is the last time that sort of thing happened. Well, since then,
I think that's what we were alluding to. When I first ran and was in political office, what came out of that and getting involved, I got involved with TBS Santa Barbara, the public access, and we started developing a show, Carpinteria Live, and that's actually how I met Palminteri. We used to do the thing. Matter of fact, it was a bartender that worked for Mary Ann named John, who was the weatherman for us, and he gave like a surfer weather report.
How cool is that?
Oh, it was hysterical. John was hysterical. We'd come over there and tape the segment. He would give us, the surf was up pretty good today. My board didn't do so well, though, and I think maybe that there might be some bad weather on the horizon. So it was kind of humorous. Mm-hmm. But while I was in political office is when the tragedy of the 85-year-old newspaper, the Carpinteria Herald, went bankrupt. I was in a public meeting, and I had an open mic on, and a bunch of the local citizens came in and said, "Oh, my God, the Herald's gone bankrupt. They've snuck out of town. They took their printer.
Wow.
Everything's gone. We're stuck with all the subscriptions." And I was kind of okay, it's a newspaper, okay.
Right, yeah.
And I popped off on the open mic, and I didn't realize it. I said, well, how hard is it to run a newspaper? And they held me to it. The next day, I got all these calls and said, well, you said it couldn't be too difficult, so let's see you put a paper together. And so consequently, Rosemary Fanucci, who you alluded to, and myself, and the only person I knew, because this is still back in when computers were still getting their light, was a young man that was renting from me. He was 20-some years old. He'd worked for the symphony and in the administrative office. And he went down and put on a Sears credit card to buy a computer. And in his little bitty studio apartment, the Coastal View was born. And back then...
And that was 25 plus now
25
years ago.
We just celebrated.
Just had their 25th anniversary just a few weeks ago.
And Rosemary came up with a bright idea that we would deliver a paper to every citizen in Carpinteria. We didn't realize that once the paper had been printed, how many 7,000 stacks of papers are, and then to take our personal vehicles out and throw them in the neighborhood in the driveways. And we were doing this weekly. It got to be insanity. And it was years evolved. We then decided, I said, no, I got to get a newspaper rack system going, and I invested.
Got to hire some kids to deliver for you. Come on.
And then I got a delivery guy finally to help out. But it's the changing of what has gone on in Carpinteria, the difference between having the social life that the locals would have to now when everything is kind of more, how do I say, we've got all these rules in place. You used to be able to go down to the beach and let your dog run and have a cold beer. Well, that doesn't happen anymore.
No.
I tease nowadays that I'm going to print in my paper the 10 rules of Carpinteria survival. No smoking, no drinking, no. And, it's just...
well, and that's just the way life is in general, is that there's more rules all the time. It's you can't smoke, you can't have your dog off leash, you can't have your dog on a leash that's longer than 6 feet long. It's like really specific, Now we've got the anti-vaping thing, and that they just passed, here in town. So that's just the way it is, I guess. You just you live your life. You gotta abide by the rules.
And the Avocado Festival, when it first started,
well, that's a whole other thing. And I thank you, by the way, for sharing your story about how the newspaper started, because I didn't really know how it actually started.
On a whim while I was in public office.
That's a great story. And then and before we go on to the Avocado Festival, I just want to say that as a media guy and a newspaper guy, I got to say that I just really love the Coastal View News. Even after all these years, it is so closely identified with the psyche of the town that it's in. And that's
Thank you, David.
That's a really good thing. And I, as part of the, whatever, me. But as the admin of World's Safest Beach on Facebook, I spent a lot of time going online, researching stuff and finding articles and stuff. And I post, I'm stealing from you basically, but I post a lot.
It's a free paper.
I post a lot of material from the Coastal View News, and I try to post from everybody, that prints, but still, I'm utilizing your material for my little group a lot. So it's a great resource.
You're not alone in that. LA Times, the Independent, they all do it to us.
It's a great resource and the thing is that people need to be more appreciative of that, I think, and they need to be more cognizant of the fact that it's not every day that happens these days. Newspapers are dying on the vine,
they are.
And so to find a small town like Carpinteria with its own daily or weekly, right?
Weekly, every week.
With its own weekly that's free, that's the locally oriented, is really, really tougher and tougher to find nowadays. So kudos for you guys for doing such a great job.
We're a member of the National Association of Free Papers, which is a national thing.
Right.
We've been a member. The paper itself for the community has been recognized with over 260 national awards.
Right.
And the thing of it is we stay focused on this community's news.
Right.
What's happening here. It can
Right.
be like I once used to joke in the early days that if Michael Jackson was in town and there was a spelling bee going on at the school, the spelling bee would get the coverage.
Yeah. Well, exactly.
And That's what we keep is the rewards that the
Right,
kids are
right,
doing
right,
and what they're
right.
happening.
Well, okay, so moving on to the Avocado Festival, the other like iconic thing
Beast.
about the beast about Carpinteria is the Avocado Festival, and that started how many years ago now?
1987.
1987.
We just did 33 years. It's now the country's largest free festival because we are free, not
It's
gated.
the largest free
festival.
in general festival, or it's
In
not just
general
it's
festival.
not just with music. Because
Our
I know that
numbers-
there was a statistic about we're the largest free like music festival or something.
We're considered a free festival because of all the vendors and crafters and all that. We do have like now over 87 acts each year on 4 different stages.
Yeah, Mike Lazaro and crew
Mike,
just do such a
my close
great
friend
job.
is, he's been involved with that also since the very beginning. But the very first one, the whole concept of it was kind of a bunch of locals getting together and saying, hey, we need to have a fundraiser for our nonprofits because most of our nonprofits here only get money from our local community.
Right.
Like the Boys and Girls Club and the Girls Inc., they don't get funding from the nationals or the other agencies in the bigger cities. It comes from us. So we decided to pick agriculture because it's been the mainstay in this community since 1860. And avocados was at that time was beginning to really blossom.
Somebody's
we got
having
an
a bad
emergency.
day. Here we are
Definitely emergency.
doing Cinema Verite
Well, that'll go
here
on good to the
at the
background.
outside coffee shop. And there goes the paramedics. So somebody's having a bad day. But continue on with what you're saying. Sorry
So what
about that.
happened is we decided to use the avocado as our mainstay for the festival because it was our largest industry at the time. The flower growers industry was beginning to grow, but avocados
So
had been involved.
it was always going to be the Avocado Festival. There
Yes.
was no consideration of having it be like the Orchid Festival or the whatever the Rose
At one
Festival.
time, in the
there's a
first
Rose
10
Festival
years, we would allow the flower growers to
Yeah.
put a tent in
Right.
to the Avocado Festival to
Right.
do a flower show.
Right.
They would do it, and it was only there for 2 days.
Yeah.
And the growers, but they were just evolving. So it was
Yeah.
a great attention getter for them.
Yeah.
We started with no money. Everything
Right.
was volunteered. Matter of fact, it was a guy which you knew very well, also a local Liebernick.
Bob
Liebernick.
Ely.
Bob
Gotta love
Ely, known for radio and everything. He started the one here in Carpinteria, but he got and convinced David Perry, who at the time owned K-Tide,
K-Tide, yeah.
to back us. And
Yeah.
that was the beginning of us figuring out that each year we were going to have to involve bringing this message of avocado and everything else to a wider audience, utilizing the radio.
Yes.
Back then, I didn't even use much television.
Yeah.
It was all radio. But it evolved into such a worthy. I mean, our numbers this year, we had 40,000 alone on Saturday.
I was there. I was one of them on Saturday afternoon.
And it's become...
It was insane. But great, though. But great. It's great to see Carpinteria.
There's 7
thriving.
board members that take the full responsibility of this.
Yeah.
Non-paid. We have one paid administrator.
Yeah.
So, but this was the highest grossing year we ever had. We'll be able to put back over $100,000 into the nonprofits from everything from Band Forever to the scholarships, the Educator of the Year we do through the chamber. And even those people that want to apply now can apply to the Avocado Festival to get grant money. We have funds set up because all of our resources that come in from tips at the beer thing now goes into a fund, and you can actually send in and say, I request funding for whatever project you got going on, and we can allocate it to it. So it's come a long way. But we're under the gun now because as the tragedy that happened at the Garlic Festival and other events throughout the nation.
I mean, it makes you worry.
And
a
with
little
our
bit.
numbers, we've had to apply heavy security measures and stuff, which is not a deterrent. I mean, we're free. We're not gated. I mean, most of the people are gated. And so we have to concentrate on utilizing our local sheriffs and our local hired guns that we hire to do the job that needs to be done. And knock on, I don't have any wood here, David.
It's all metal, sorry.
The Avocado Festival has been very free of just terrible incidents.
Yeah, well, and we wanted to remain so, and
Yes.
it's such a great festival. And I have to admit something here, and that is that when the avocado and I don't think I came to the very first one, but I certainly came to one of the very first few ones. As a radio guy, having to come down on a Saturday, broadcasting live from the Avocado Festival. And I have to, and this is before I lived here, and I have to admit, and I'm ashamed to do so, I did not like avocados. And
You're
I
not
was
alone on that.
Yeah, and I did not like them, and I didn't want any guacamole, and I didn't want anything. So somebody convinced me to have a avocado brownie, because you can't really taste it.
Yes.
So I said avocado brownie. I thought, okay, I hate some damn avocado. But then coming back to the avocado every year, and everybody seemed to be having so much fun, even eating the guacamole and just loving it so much. And the ice cream, which I've had since, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
And so I decided to just give myself to the avocado. This was actually even before I lived
Surrender
here.
to the
Exactly.
temptation of it.
And I'm so glad that I did. I just absolutely love them now. I love them now. A big bowl of guacamole, lay it on me, baby. And this year, Rory's did a really nice job of the avocado ice cream.
Yeah.
I'm all in.
And Foster Freeze.
I'm all in.
Foster Freeze made the other soft served ice cream for us. Our local Foster Freeze was the one that made the actual soft serve part of the avocado ice cream.
Oh, really?
And they supplied us over 4,000 cups of avocado ice cream soft serve.
I had no idea.
So it's, again, the community.
Right. Well, that's a whole other thing about being in Carpinteria. Not to take the discussion off on this track, but I'm an old time Santa Barbara area guy, and I have many, many, many fond memories of a kid being at a Foster Freeze location in Santa Barbara or whatever. And we are lucky enough to have I have so many friends who are envious that we have the last Foster Freeze in the area. I can't think of where the closest. It's like a Tascadero or something.
Yes.
I don't know where the
Rosemont. Rosemont.
And they used to just be all over. And so I mean, a lot of people rave about the spot, of course. Carpinteria, the spot. But I have friends that are just obsessed with the fact that I can go over to Foster Freeze any day of the week. And get a mocha malt and get, a whatever hamburger, and it's just like the same as it used to be all those years ago.
It's the same family.
Yeah.
After 63 years,
really? It is?
It's the same family owns it.
Yeah,
So there again
that.
is a small town thing.
It's another great reason to be here in Carpinteria because we have a Foster Freeze and we're special.
And believe me, they still drive to it. They come in for the ice cream. During the Avocado Festival, that's a thing, and especially when they found out this year they were making the avocado soft serve. And then after that, the involvement came that there was another need in the summertime because, Carpinteria has its little hokey parade. We can't really celebrate the 4th of July because they won't let us have fireworks here because safety.
Right, and you want to schedule it so it's like not during a work day or whatever. Want to be on the weekend so you can bring the kids and everything. And I love our parade.
Well, and the first parade that we really did on that celebration, Chewy's was involved.
Yeah.
We only had something like 8 or 10 entrants. We had to go around 3 times. And here's how wonderful everybody was. They kept going, I thought I saw that one. Oh, wait a minute. There's a different driver. And we sent him around and around until it made it look like a full parade. Now we have almost 40 entrants in the parade.
That is hilarious.
And what evolved in with the 4th of July celebration, I was part of a group of guys here they were car guys. We were restoring cars. I restored Corvettes and I've restored trucks. So one time the chamber, when they opened up the new Amtrak platform, said, hey, can you get some of your car guys to come down and be part of this celebration for the thing? And all of a sudden, that's where Rods and Roses came in because the flower growers here brought a bunch of roses down to give to all the people at the platform.
Okay.
And so the name came out.
Right.
Eventually, within the first 4 or 5 years, as the car show was growing, Andy Granatelli took an interest, Mr. 500. And he lived in Montecito, but he came over and he said, man, you guys are doing a bunch. This is a real car show. You car guys.
Yeah.
And he helped us fine-tune it to a point where car guys were being respected for the work and the things they did on
Wow.
their cars.
I
And
didn't know that.
Yeah.
See, so it's kind of like Julia Childs saying that she liked the Spot Burger. When you got Julia Childs saying that she likes your hamburger, we
Yeah.
got Mr. 500
Yeah.
saying you guys have got a good car thing happening here. That's like there's no higher endorsement
And
than
he
that.
was our grand marshal until he passed away.
Wow.
For 14 years, he was the grand marshal. We still do a tribute every year, straight up noon, of Gentlemen, Start Your Engines. And we let all the hot rods start up and let it roar.
And there's a certain thrill as a guy that I have of like standing down there out in front of the palms or whatever, and I just listen to them go. You
and
know?
the palms have got those big windows that rattle.
Yeah,
When those motors, especially when Joey Costa and the boys are out front there.
I've experienced that several times, so I love that. Yeah.
And we decided then, with the help of Andy Granatelli, that we would pick a nonprofit that needed so much help that gets very little support from our school system, and that's FFA, Future Farmers of America. And the Future Farmers of America have been part of this community since the very beginning.
Oh, yeah.
And they've won awards and everything, but the school kept cutting their budgets, kept cutting things out, and it's such a great program, so that's where we decided that FFA was the main recipient of it. To keep it funded. We are able to pay for I guess I call them instructors now. I don't think they call them teachers.
I don't know.
So Rods and Roses became that. We're celebrating this year 22 years now.
Nice.
22 years. Our local guy that has taken over for Andy Granatelli is Michael Hammer, who is part of the Hammer Foundation.
Right.
And he has one of his museums here. And then the Peterson Museum, which is down in the Wilshire area, that has probably over 300 of the greatest cars ever made, in their collection, and they bring them up. And then, of course, Corvette Ed out here. He's been participating forever. The funny story about Corvette Ed got his start. He was the mechanic that was hired by General Motors to go around to all the Chevrolet dealers to spec out the new Corvettes to make sure they were ready to go to whoever.
What a great gig that was.
What was a gig. And there's where his collection came in.
Yeah.
He's got like a 1953, one of the very first Corvettes ever made. It's a 6-cylinder, if you can believe that. But he goes all the way through every year the Corvette was ever made because he just kept collecting and adding to it. And we're fortunate to have somebody that he, again, was a business person that's been here, like the Palms, Foster Freeze. All these people are old-time Carpinterians that have been here.
And we don't want to change a thing.
No.
That's the thing. I mean, and actually, I have to say that I've been here I've been coming to Carpinteria for longer than I lived here. And I lived in La Conchita before I lived in Carpinteria.
There's stories about that.
But I've probably been in Carp now almost 20 years. I love this town. I've lived all over this county. I've lived up in Santa Maria and Lompoc, up in the North County. I've lived out in Goleta and Santa Barbara and Summerlin. And I've lived all over. And I just love Carpinteria so much because, unfortunately, I grew up out in Goleta. And I go out to Goleta now and I see what's happening. It's become like the San Fernando Valley or whatever. It's just horrible. And Carpinteria hasn't done any of that.
No.
We are just nestled in between the mountains and the coastline, and we've got our agriculture, and, we just are just a small little town. And we remain a small little town. And still, I love the fact that when I want to go out to dinner or I want to go to the store or whatever, I can just park my car right in front of where I'm going. Here we are for coffee, and my car's parked right there. I can see where it is. I didn't have to find a parking instructor somewhere and park and get a ticket and blah, blah, blah. I love that about this town. I love it about this town.
And what you're defining is what the nickname is for Carpinteria Charm. Carpinteria Charm is us being able to welcome whoever into the community, and they feel like they've never left home. And like you mentioned La Conchita, there is so much kinship between that little community and Carpinteria because so many of the Carpinterians that reside there, and when things hit, tragedies hit, which has happened down there, they all bond together. When tragedy hits here, when we had the floods, they all bond together. And that's what you.
Well,
described.
and there's a whole other thing that I feel, and having been a resident of La Conchita, there's a certain part of me that says that they should be annexed to the county of Santa Barbara. They shouldn't be any part of Ventura County. But
I think you're absolutely right.
But Santa Barbara County doesn't really want that headache and hassle. That's like a can of worms you don't want anything to do with. And I'm sure the Ventura County would be happy to let them go, but they
don't.
Really?
No, actually,
because when I lived there, I just didn't feel like Ventura.
They still take that tax base out of La Conchita.
That's true.
And it's funny because they condemned all the property. They said no buildings after what had happened in the tragedies.
Yeah.
And yet buildings started again. Selling of real estate started again down there.
Well, but it's an all like cash, whatever.
Cash deal.
You can't get any financing on a place, but
revenue.
Yeah, well,
and they're paying their property taxes.
Yeah.
And every time it sells them more. So Ventura County takes that part of it that they think that Santa Barbara should, and I agree with you, have taken La Conchita a long time ago.
Yeah.
Because it's basically an extension. Like you got a suburb of some of the big cities,
As a resident of La Conchita, I always felt like I was, part of Carpinteria a lot more than I felt like I was part of Ventura, for Christ's sake.
Oh, yeah.
I'm always coming into Carpinteria every day, and I, never go to Ventura.
Look at all the people that come into Carpinteria from La Conchita.
Exactly.
And the thing about it, again, Carpinteria now has gotten to a point where this new generation has come evolved. They've come out to expose a lot of the things that were kind of hidden about the charm, because now they have the internet and the stuff which you're doing, the podcast. All of them now can get this social media thing and get recognized. Hey, I'm at the beach today, and they get their shot and they post it, And I go to the high school quite a bit now, and I see the kids come out and they get their cameras out immediately and they get their phones out immediately and they start doing all these things. This is where I live.
Right.
And so they have created a social awareness throughout. It's like our paper now being recognized as far as L.A., and they take the pitchforks and halo from my paper.
Right.
DJs down there like to use it because of it.
Well, I think that, and I don't want to, I'm trying to be as transparent as possible doing this whole podcasting thing and about who I am and what it is that I do and that sort of thing. And the one thing that I don't want to be completely transparent about is talking about where I work.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I don't really want people to show up or whatever, and the public has access to where I work and stuff. But I will say that I work in an industry where I'm seeing people that are coming from out of town to come into Carpinteria. I'm seeing them all the time, and I'm hearing what they have to say about Carpinteria, and the fact that and the visitors that come here from all over the world, just seem to universally love it, And when I'm doing news searches, more and more often, I'm seeing articles in like the national media about some celebrity that happens to be vacationing here in Carpinteria. Moving here, yeah, exactly. But just a couple of weeks ago, there was one of the housewives, or I don't know who it was, but some reality person and their family, the Duggins, whatever show they do. They were vacationing here in Carpinteria, and it was like big national news. The Duggins were in Carpinteria.
Brian bought in, Ashton bought in.
And the fact that Ellen and Portia have sold their house.
Yes.
On Padaro was huge news. That was just all over the internet, and we've become known for. And Padaro, I mean, I hate to say it out loud, but everybody who's locally knows that Padaro is kind of becoming the new Malibu. So
it totally is.
So Kevin
Very
Costner's been there for years and years and years. He was like the first one that started the whole thing.
George Lucas is out
George
there.
is there. George is there now. Conan O'Brien's out there now. Mila Kunis and Ashton Kutcher just bought a place out there. Ellen and Portia very famously had a place there, and so it's become this little epicenter for the Los Angeles glitterati that don't really want to do Malibu, because Malibu is kind of over, I think, a little bit, know. So Padaro is like the new Malibu, and it's just crazy.
It is, and the beauty of it is, and I've met everyone that you've talked about.
Yeah.
They all come in. They come to the avocado festival.
Yeah.
They come in there.
Yeah.
They love the part that in Carpinteria they can be themselves.
Yeah, well,
they can be their kid.
Exactly.
Aston brings his kids over and gets
Yeah.
ice cream
There-
at Foster Freeze.
There are no paparazzi
yeah.
in Carpinteria, and I've seen, I won't even drop names, but I've seen celebrities, down on Linden Avenue or in some restaurant or whatever, just around town.
Yes.
And it's so nice. Hey, how you doing? Good to see you. And it's no big deal, you
That's
know.
right.
And I think that they've got to love that.
They do.
You know.
They tell me that.
Yeah.
They say that was one of
Yeah.
the important things
Yeah.
about Aston. Kirshner brings him and his wife in to get ice cream
Yeah.
with the two kids.
Yeah.
When they're in there, they're so wonderful. They'll
Yeah.
let the kids hold their
Yeah.
babies
Yeah.
and socialize.
Yeah.
They're just like anybody else. Conan O'Brien brings his son in, goes and sits down and
Yeah.
has breakfast, and he's his,
Oh yeah. No,
one of the guys.
I've seen Portia de Rossi come in and get breakfast for her and Alan at Esau's
Yes.
when they were living down here.
Exactly.
She'd show up in her, and she'd get breakfast. It's just no big deal.
It is.
And so I have said many, 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 many times that when you've got people like Ellen or George Lucas, who has like all the money in Hollywood, basically, they could go anywhere on the planet that they wanted to. And of course, a lot of it has to do with our proximity to Los Angeles, I'll grant you.
Right.
But they could go and live anywhere on the planet they wanted to. And where did they buy a place? Here. Yeah. I had somebody ask me not too long ago, or this was actually it was a while ago. Time slips by when I wasn't paying attention. But they asked me a long time ago, well, if you won the lottery and price was no object, where would you go? Would you go to Hawaii? Would you live in the mountains? Would you live at the? I thought for a minute, and I thought, well, I might drop a few mil on a place down on Padaro Beach or something.
There you go.
But I wouldn't really want to go anywhere. I mean, for me, Carpinteria is like the garden spot of really the planet Earth, as far as I'm concerned. We are just the most fortunate people to be walking amongst humanity that live right here.
The statement you just made, Oprah's man, Stedman, comes in every week to get ice cream.
Yeah.
And his favorite thing to tell the kids is, this is the paradise I would always want to be
That's
in.
cool. I've never seen Stedman here in town. I've seen him up in the Upper Village, but I've never seen him.
He comes into Foster every week to get his ice cream.
Outstanding.
He does.
Well,
and a wonderful person.
Yeah.
And he feels comfortable.
And Oprah's another one of those people that could be anywhere she wanted to be, and she lives, next door.
Yeah.
So what the hell? Why not?
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. But people like that.
Yeah.
In that industry that are hounded so much, and yet they come into our town and they feel comfortable. They feel relaxed. They enjoy themselves. They could be sitting, if they'd come up right now, they'd sit down and talk to us with no problem.
Well, I truly love this town. I really do.
I do too.
I really do. And I know that, once again, making it about me and whatever, but my work as the admin of the World's Safest Beach is really, for me, what it boils down to is it's my it started as kind of a lark, just a thing to do one day on Facebook when I had nothing else to do.
Right.
And it's turned into my love letter to this town of living here. I just love it so
great.
much that during the Thomas fire and then the ensuing debris flow and we were cut off and everything, and I saw that so many people were using. Well, when we were cut off from Cox, they were using the internet, using Facebook as a way to relay information.
That's the way of the world now.
So I saw a lot of people sort of taking World Safest Beach kind of seriously, so I decided to take it seriously myself, and that's when I sort of really try to aggregate a lot of news and really trying to be involved with the community. And it's become my love letter to Carpinteria. I just think Carpinteria is such a special little town that we've got papers like the Coastal View. We've got theaters like the Alcazar Theater that are doing some great things here.
Can you imagine in our little theater, Michael McDonald is performing?
It's so awesome.
I mean, give me a break. I mean, a 200-seat little theater comes to perform there.
And actually, that whole thing that he just did was, an outgrowth of, Eddie Tadori. Starting right here in Carpinteria after his, he had an accident here in Carpinteria that inspired him to do this great thing. And and we've got the the only Foster Freeze in the area. We've got the spot. We have the Palms. We have all kinds of great places to eat. We just have a lot going on here in Carpinteria, and I think we're all really, really blessed to be here. And And certainly,
I agree with that 100%.
and and not to get not to get too sappy or whatever, but it's like people like you who are very involved in the community and are long time standards of the community help to really put us on the map. I think that you being involved with the community as much as you are,
well, I appreciate
I think
that,
helps
David.
to make it a better place. And so that's why I really wanted you to come and talk to me for a while.
My main goal, though, in these last 5 years is there's been a real drastic change in the younger generation in that volunteerism is not something that is forthcoming from them in a natural way now. They're more interested.
Spend time on their phones and anything else.
Exactly. We've had very little success in getting people to step up to continue what we started with the Avocado Festival, the Rods and Roses, because volunteers now look at it, well, how much time is it going to take me away from my phone? Or how much time am I not going to be able to get? Do I make money? Volunteerism is a very special, especially in Carpinteria.
Right.
Because if it wasn't for the volunteerism, the success of this town would be very lacking in all of the things that we offer.
That's true.
The Girls Inc., the
That's
Boys
true.
and Girls Club.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
We have so many service organizations that rely so heavily on volunteerism, and they seem to be clustered down here in Carpinteria, like Girls Inc., like Help.
Help is just. What a service
to
help our seniors.
Yeah,
to help them and to drive them to wherever they need to go. And so
you bring me around to this now. Now is where it feels like a radio show now.
Yeah.
So Gary, tell us, should our listeners actually want to reach out to like a service organization or the city or whatever? Who do you suggest that they reach out to, whether it's an email address or whether it's a website to go to or it's a phone number to call or whatever? What do you think? Where would I go if I wanted to volunteer here in Carpinteria?
In Carpinteria, we have a way, especially through the paper, that you can see the number of nonprofits and people that are doing things for this community. But the things I would say is, pick something that is close to you and dear from you.
Yeah.
Like Help is for the seniors that really need to get around.
Yeah.
The Avocado Festival is for such a wide vast, all the way to the cheerleaders, to all that.
Right.
So if you as a volunteer now have something special, like the car show, if you're into cars, be a good place to think about it, to volunteer. If you're into music and bands, we have 87 acts now at the Avocado Festival, and we work with the County Bowl on putting now a stage in that is done with all the youth. All that type of thing is where you need to go. And almost every week we have a place in the paper called Service Clubs, all that, and you can get that information. Another place is the Chamber does have a listing of the nonprofits too. You can go to their websites, and of course everybody has websites now.
Of course.
And so,
but you make a good point though, and that is that the Coastal View News. We were talking earlier about how rare it is for the community to have a weekly paper of such vigor in its community, and the website is really a great little website, and it is a great way to monitor what's happening in Carpinteria. And if you want to know what events are happening in Carpinteria or what service organizations are doing in Carpinteria, that's a great way to kind of keep track. And people who are interested in like helping the community, especially you talk about younger people, you know.
Pick something you like or enjoy,
They'll see who is active in our community and where the need might be. So that would be a good place to start if you're looking to help your community a little bit more.
One of my assistant editors is big in the board and surfing industry and all this. Pick these plagues that you're interested in. If you're a young person now, you have a choice.
Right.
In the early days, there wasn't so much choice because some of these things hadn't got going yet.
Exactly.
When I first started Help way back in the day, there was no help for transportation for seniors to get from a grocery store to their home. Nothing. And that's how it evolved because there was that need. All right. Now we found ways to place these organizations. They're there, And all the young people need to do is think, okay, what would I enjoy most? What would I feel?
Right.
And there's where your volunteerism can come alive in them if they would understand that they get to pick.
Yeah.
They don't have to go out and invent it
Yeah.
anymore. We've put it out there for them. I mean, it's there now of these different agencies that we create. The food bank, the homeless, Foster Freeze every week feeds all the homeless in town.
Hey.
Yeah, on a Wednesday they can go get burgers, fries, and a drink.
Wow.
Yeah, and so if you have something special that's close to your surfing, the ocean. I mean, skateboarding. Look at the skateboarding foundation now that we're trying to get the park done.
We have such a wide variety of things to do here in Carpinteria that there are a wide variety of volunteerism events and opportunities that we have in Carpinteria as well.
Yes.
Like for one thing, and of course this is a seasonal thing, but one thing you can do here in Carpinteria, and I think it's a great thing to be able to do, is go be like a seal monitor.
Seal watcher.
Or watcher, yeah.
Yep.
And you can hang out there and you can watch the seals all day and you can talk to the people who are coming in to the area to see what's happening. That is such a cool thing to be able to do.
Especially it seems like young people now have such an environmental issue with everything. Be a part of something that we have here for that. There's the seal watchers, the beach cleanups. All these different things come into play now, and it's just a matter of picking and choosing something. Something that close to you. I'm not telling them I want you as a volunteer for the Alvo Fest. If your interest, lies in being watching the environment, the seals, the dog park. We finally get in a dog
Well, we
park.
finally got permission to get it done. Now we'll have to talk about where it's going to go. To tell you the truth.
Well, that's a big deal.
But of course, everybody wants one. Nobody wants it in the neighborhood. I live in Lagunitas, which is one of the locations that they're proposing putting the dog park in a parcel up front. In front of our neighborhood.
Where the industrial area.
Yeah,
right?
well, kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an open field, and so it's going to be something someday. They're going to build a campus there, but part of it is been deeded to be never developed on, except for maybe a dog park.
Okay.
And it's right there. It's in front of the neighborhood. It's not actually in the neighborhood, but none of my neighbors want this thing. I know a lot of my neighbors, including myself, are dog owners, and we love the idea of a dog park. But we don't really want it in our quote-unquote neighborhood.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that going on in Carpinteria or anywhere in general, I suppose. It's like,
Personally,
well, that's a great
I always
idea.
felt that I tried to get them to do the city a long time ago and to be more congenial with the oil company. Down on Dump Road, that parcel that's on the front right there where Joey Costa's old place used to be, the old airport. That parcel of land would be ideal for it because it can never be really developed in any manner because there was so much, what do you call it, oil
contamination or whatever. Yeah,
Thank you, Dave. And so that would be an ideal situation.
But well, we'll see where they decide to put it. They're going to put it somewhere, and they're going to debate now where it's going to be, and we'll see. But none of my neighbors really want it in Lagunitas area. So,
that's what I'm saying.
Anybody in power's listening, it's in Lagunitas, maybe not. Whatever.
No, I agree. I've heard everybody say not in my backyard. Matter of fact,
I'm okay with it. Myself personally, my wife will probably hate me for saying this, on the show, but I'm okay either way. If they want to build it in my neighborhood, I say let them build it. What the hell?
Well, I was part of the C2 fundraiser. I was one of the judges.
Very good.
I was one of the judges down there, and the one thing that came out with all these dog lovers that they care about and everything is they have to also come forth and shoulder some of the responsibility. I mean, you got to realize that having a dog park doesn't mean, I just turn my dog loose. And
it needs to be built, and there's got to be pens, and you got to have access to it, and
pick up after your animals.
It's not just like a field that you designate as being dog friendly, and then you're done with it. You know?
Exactly. So you have to be a participant. It's like our bluffs are supposed to be for walking and all this, and they've got these little baggy things for people to do.
Right.
Well, they'll take them, fill the bag, but they leave the bag for somebody else to pick up.
Yeah. Thank you very much. That's a whole other thing, and I wish we had. When we fortunately, we're not like a show that we have to wrap up at a certain time. But so I'm only really constrained by people's attention spans more than anything else. I wish that we had an unlimited amount of time to talk, because one of the things I want to talk about, and we're really not getting to, is we're now buying more bluffs.
Oh,
like
we bought it all now.
we just got the clearance and everything to buy this new. I love the fact, and once again, being a resident of Lagunitas, that's like right across the freeway from me. I love the fact every day when I drive past there, I thank goodness that will be a nature preserve in perpetuity, forever, and I can walk out there. I can take my dogs on a leash, kids, but I can take my dogs out there. I can walk for
go down to
miles
seal watchers.
I can watch the seals. I can cruise around. And I love the fact that there's a baseball diamond right there. They built this great field, so I can go see. I can see the I love the fact that that's right there.
Baseball, all of it.
I wish that we still had, we still had the hot dog man set up out there, And
well, I got a plaque up there for him.
We all miss Billy. I wish I could go out there and get a dog from Billy, but it's such a great location. I love the fact that it's in Carpinteria, and I want like an hour to spend with you talking about that.
Okay,
but
we'll get some more time.
But you know what? It's been like almost an hour, so I think probably we should wrap up.
This was the fastest hour I've spent.
We should probably wrap up this love fest of Carpinteria, but you are the perfect person to sing its praises. And I tell you what, maybe if you want to do episode 2,
we'll do something later.
If you weren't totally bored, somewhere down the road, we'll have you on again. If you got events that you want to promote. You can either email me and I'll at least pass it on, or you can come on and
the big parade's coming up in December.
We can do a segment. Well, and I'm actually considering, and I haven't talked to Amboy about this, but I think we have to be creative because it's not live radio. But I would like to do some quote unquote live remotes, like at the parade, or next year at the Avocado Festival, or whatever, or Rods and Roses.
Anytime.
Yeah, and so I may want to do that sort of thing. But so we'll see. We'll see. But anytime, you got my email address, you can let me know what's going on. And certainly we'll have you back on again, and I won't even commit for the entire hour. I'll do a short segment with you.
I can't believe how because it was easy to talk with you.
But yeah, it's been like an hour, so I appreciate the fact. I appreciate the fact that you were willing to come with me and hang out for a while, Lucky Llama, and that we had a chance to catch up.
Yes.
And talk about how great Carpinteria is, and that's really what this show is all about. And I'm sorry that Amboy wasn't here for this discussion because he would have.
He's going to get to listen to it, though.
He would have. Oh, I assume so. He may not. I'm not on that show. I'm not listening to it. But he would have loved it. But in the meantime, I'm really happy that you were able to spend some time with us. And so, I guess this is where it becomes a radio show where I just thank everybody for listening. For both of you who did. Right. And stuck through the whole thing. And I'll be back again, hopefully with Amboy next time.
Is that how they find it, Amboy?
Well, that's his name, Amboy.
Okay, but the podcast?
Oh, the podcast is called The World's Safest Podcast. And I'm going to actually...
World's Safest
Well, as a quick note, this is part of me working stuff out on the show. Like, I've just recently figured out how to put it up on YouTube. How to make it a video. So we're recording like an MP3 right now, so it's like a radio show. So I had it up on SoundCloud where you could listen to it and you could download it. And then I realized, I can put it on YouTube if I turn it into a video. So I figured out how to put like a little police card up there with the logo and turn it into a video and upload it to where where you can look at it on YouTube. Now the next thing is I've got to figure out how to get the RSS feed so that I can plug it into places like Spotify or iTunes, or I guess iTunes doesn't exist anymore. It's like Apple Music now.
Oh, that's right.
I'm trying to get with the times now. But there's places where people go to download their favorite podcasts. So I'm going to try to get it on those places as well as I figure it out. But for the moment, it's available on YouTube. It's called The World's Safest Podcast, and I usually post a link to it on Facebook's group, World's Safest Beach, because that's my group and I can do what I want to.
Beautiful.
So that's promote my own radio show. So there you go. So Gary Dobbins, thanks for spending some time with us on the show, and we'll be back next time the motivation moves us.